I'd like to call the meeting to order at 3:30, July 23rd. Audit and Finance. Present at the meeting, DeLucci, Hobart, Perkins, Sarah White, Brian Kidney. What is your name? Adam Norris, Sheila Saxton. Oh, Laura Dominic snuck in. Hi, Laura.
Hello. I'm sitting back here just to put something on the table. Obviously, I'm
Don't
not
worry,
part
don't
of
worry. And Becky Harris. No, I didn't even see you walk in. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
We've only been doing this for a year. Echo.
Can you turn off the sound?
Needs to turn on the smart. I'm just turning that thing. I don't.
Do you want a roll call on the people who are online,
Yes.
Councilmember? So Steve Wagner, Pam Coleman, Cindy Gray, Erica Benitez, Ron Luce, and Natalia Fairchild.
Okay. First order of business is approval of minutes of June 4th, 2021. Gentlemen, have you had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes?
I reviewed them. Didn't know what changes needed.
Can I accept them as printed?
I would make a motion.
Second.
Done. Mr. Liu, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can. Can you give us a Munis update?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. And so does everyone have the update document in front of them to reference? If not, I can just read through it. So what we have going right now, the fixed asset accomplishments, the fixed asset project. We've received the final draft report from the consultant, and the finance team is looking over that right now for accuracy. And once that's accepted, we can load that into Munis. So we're almost there with fixed assets. The Munis software upgrade, it's been a fairly long process, a little longer than we had thought, but we validated all the processes in the test environment. We ran parallel payrolls. The user documentation, which was created by Pam and Cindy, has been distributed to the team, and the software upgrade will be complete next week on the 27th. So,
What are parallel payrolls?
go, Pam. Did you hear that?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention that they're actually working on upgrading the software right now. So,
What about parallel payroll?
what was the question? I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry to be so ignorant. I just was curious as to what a parallel payroll is.
Sure. That's where we run a payroll in the new software and compare it to a true payroll in the live software. So basically we're running the same payroll twice to make sure we get the exact same results.
And that has been done more than once?
Yes, it has. Many times.
Has it been done with fire?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
What's
Go
the
ahead, Ron.
accuracy on that?
I'm
All right,
sorry.
very good. Was there another question?
Mr. Perkins wanted to know what's the accuracy on the parallel payroll?
I believe it was 100% accurate.
Including fire?
Yes.
Great.
So the numbers totaled the same. Holly and Katrina ran the parallels. Several of them, including yesterday, ran the payroll parallel for this week's payroll. And I've heard no negative feedback from that.
Thank you very much. Ron, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, ask questions as needed. So timekeeping and scheduling. We actually had a demo of the ExecuTime advanced scheduling for fire and police. I think it was well received. We had a couple of questions, so we collected some client references from Tyler, because just because they say they can do it, we don't necessarily believe them. We want to talk to some of the existing users, and so both Pam and I and some folks from fire and police are going to reach out to people at these contacts and ask them how their experience has been. But regardless of that, we need to prepare to roll out ExecuTime for everybody else in the city. So we're working on that right now. And one of the critical paths for us actually is to get experienced people from Tyler here to help us with that implementation, because it's very, very complicated. So we're working on that right now. I think we're hoping to get it maybe in September or October, but we haven't yet got a confirmation from Tyler. So that's a bit of a challenge. Position control, that all the position control records have been updated. The approved FTEs and budget amounts by position have been reconciled, so that's working well. That part of the project is complete. So we are done with that. Recruiting and onboarding. The first automated job opening was processed in Munis. Yay! So that was good. Now we're creating the documentation to make sure that city managers actually understand how to use the process. But, you know, we did one, it's working, so that's exciting too.
Okay, but you're gonna have to tell me what that means in English. Like, we posted a job in Munis and people were able to apply for the job in Munis.
Ron, do you want me to?
Go ahead, Pam. Yeah.
So the job opening process is kind of like the replacement for your request to fill process. So it's a request by, say, a department to fill a position that has to go through workflow for the department manager to approve, and then it goes to budgeting in the workflow to confirm that there's budget for them. Then it goes to I don't remember. There's 4 steps of the workflow process. It goes to the department head, budgeting, and then I believe the hiring committee.
Okay, so Pam, it's internal to the city.
Yes, it's internal to the city.
Okay.
The part
works well.
Yes, it worked. It worked fine. It was electronic work to replace the paper.
Okay,
form.
great, thanks.
Yeah.
The part that we're working on now is actually for hiring managers. With the new upgrade to the software, there's a lot of new tools for them to analyze the applicants. So we have not yet had applicants apply through the Munis software, but that's coming next.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's a big win, getting the electronic workflow and getting that up and running, because that's complicated to get it going. But once it's going, it works really well. So, complex payroll calculations. I think we finalized all the configurations and we've automated all the calculations we can. At this point, we think that's 100% solid. Now, we may come up with things in the future, but right now we can find nothing wrong with it at this point. So we're calling it complete, but we'll monitor the situation. The transparency portal, that is basically a citizen portal where citizens could go take a look at different financials that we choose to expose to the public. Right now, we got a demo of the Tyler, they call it Open Finance software, and we're planning on implementing that in August. We're going to implement that in a very small way, just to expose a very small amount of data at first to make sure everything works. And then we'll go from there and expose more as time allows and as we feel comfortable with.
And who makes a decision as to what is on that portal?
Well, finance, probably Brian, and talking to you all, I would assume, is going to be who's going to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So, you know, completed projects, we've got quite a bit done. The fire and pay recalculations, Tyler Professional Services engaged, the HR gap analysis, position control is done, complex payroll we figured all that out. The steering committees, we already had our first meeting, so we've got a lot done, but we still have quite a bit on our plate. That timekeeping and scheduling, there's going to be a lot of business process reengineering that goes along with that. So it's not just a software project, it's going to be a business process. So that's going to continue to be a fairly heavy lift. And then we're getting ready to get into some of the integrations with CityWorks, which is the work order system, and utility billing AUS. So those are going to be kicking off soon. So we've got a lot done, but we still have a fair amount on our plate. Would you say that's fair, Pam?
Yes, and the upgrade project will be completed and shortly, so that'll leave some of the resource. So some of the timing of these projects depends heavily on the same resources. So that's where some of the coordination of the projects and the timing of them have been adjusted accordingly.
What's the rebuild chart of accounts?
What is the rebuild chart of account?
I will let Cindy maybe make some comments about that, but the chart of accounts, there are some areas where the finance department is looking at possibly making changes to the structure of the codes so that reporting and inquiries can be a little bit better. Some of it has to do with the FERC accounting, some changes wanting to be done in the account structure. And there's actually, Baker and Tilly's been involved in looking at what's required so that we can see make sure that we account for those in the accounting structure appropriately. Cindy, do you have any more input on that?
No, you said it pretty well. We are starting that structure, building that structure. So it just takes a while. There's also some things in Munis that once we get the upgrade done, we'll have to make some changes in there in order to change some of the how processes work within the Munis system. So it just is a timing thing. It will take us a little while to get that through. It's you don't want to mess this up. So we're taking it very slow and very cautious.
Thanks.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
I got one for the payroll calculations with the fire department. Are they satisfied with that? Is the union executive board, those guys, they have any problems and concerns on their end?
I don't think we've got any concerns.
Good, okay.
And I just have a question. You have a box on page 2, project risks. And I see the word risk and I get scared. IT breach, appropriate Tyler skilled staff, availability of city staff. Why do you have those labeled under project risks? I mean, are they active risks or you're just worried that something's going to happen in the future?
They're just ongoing risks. They're nothing new, but they're things that we have to keep an eye on, right? As we start building out these new processes, there could be IT risk exposure, right? Exposure to bad things on the internet and to viruses. We want to make sure we're keeping up with the IT security policy and that we're meeting the IT security policies of the city while we're doing this. So we have to keep an eye on that. The Tyler skilled staff, as I mentioned, with the execu time, they're very short on staff right now, and the economy's going very well, and so can be difficult to schedule the right folks. So it's just a risk that's out there. We're trying to mitigate it as best we can. And then city staff, as Pam was just saying, some of these we don't have enough people to work on all these projects at the same time. So we kind of have to roll people off of one project and onto the other. So we're doing a little bit of juggling. So it's just informational.
Okay, we haven't been breached. That's my question.
No, not that I know of. No, there's been no IT breach, but we need to be cognizant of that because the IT threats, they're growing all the time.
And Ron, so we're clear, the city's IT staff has been available for you. As you know, we've upgraded a bunch of hardware and a bunch of software on our network. So they are working with you and they're available to you and it's all going smoothly.
That's correct. We appreciate that. Yes. And we want to make sure we're working with the team and everybody knows what everybody else is doing. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep.
I'll add to that. Ron, I'll add to that. So as one of those are both my divisions, and there's a weekly meeting that we have where all my divisions coordinate projects. And so that's definitely, so for instance, this one right this week with the new upgrade, IT and accounting finance have been very good in tune with each other to make sure that staff is available. It's a very coordinated process, right?
That's, as you know, and the reason I mention it is because, you know, recently the city's gone public with breach that we had last year. And so people will just be more concerned about that, of course, as we go along. So
cybersecurity is a topic and background.
Well, we very much appreciate that because that's certainly a problem.
I'll also, if you don't mind, also, since Ron had mentioned appropriate Tyler skilled staff, I will say, you mentioned the scheduling software for fire and police departments. I was very happy to see. So when we had the preliminary, the demo and everything, the staff that they have for that particular piece actually come from the fire department. That's what they did for the fire department, was doing scheduling for the fire department. So I thought I just wanted to know that I was really very pleased that Tyler had somebody who was on our account, that's what they did in their former life, was a scheduler for the fire department. That they're working on the software. So I was happy, pleasantly surprised that they had that skill level, and I was very happy. And the fire department, the police department did, I mean, the presentation went really well. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that when they were asking them questions, they were talking
Same language.
same language. I was like, okay, you guys go. You can do it.
So is it implemented then in fire and police, or but they're gearing up for it? And along with that, your staff is also help train the data entry folks or the timekeeping folks.
So, yeah, so we have two things. We have, one is the actual time data collection, which is ExecuTime that we're doing. That is ongoing. That's through the process. And that is being implemented, and we're having training. Polly, our new payroll person, has meeting with all the timekeepers, make sure they're properly trained on it. What we're talking about is additional scheduling on top of it.
Okay.
For specifically police and fire. Where we are right now, we've had the demo. We want to see and speak with people that have implemented that.
Combine the two?
In other organizations.
So in other words, ExecuTime will work inside of.
Yeah, so you have Munis, which is payroll system, that's ongoing.
Okay.
Then on top of that, you have this timekeeping.
For police and fire.
No, for everybody.
For everybody.
For everybody. So right now we have about 40, and I'm not making these numbers up, 40 to 50 different ways people do time clocks, time cards in our departments. This is going to basically, they're all going to be the same, and it's this exact time.
That'll be done in 2 or 3 days?
No.
No.
No, but Ron, help me, when does that do?
The timekeeping?
Yeah.
Well, right now we're trying to schedule it, and we haven't got a commitment yet from our friends at Tyler. So I think the very earliest would be late September, but I think it's going to go a little later than that. But like I said, there's also, it's not just about installing software. There's a lot of business processes. A lot of folks around the city are going to do things a lot differently, right? So we have to kind of flesh that out. Wouldn't you agree, Pam?
Yeah, right.
So we mean
Yeah.
that trees.
Yeah.
What time you clock in, rounding things, you may have one department that says 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock. You may have another department that says 2 to 5, that's still 8. Or, so it's a process going through all of our rules.
Yeah.
And get them.
You're saying we do that now, that they round up or round down to the.
There's a rounding rule in a lot of time, in a lot of support agreements. Not just support agreements, just basically, if there's a line of five people stand in front of the time clock, one clock says 8, next one 8 or 1, you go 2, they're all paid as 8. So that's a generally speaking, there are normal rounding rules about that. I just do that as a thing. But that's what we want. We want to make sure all is standardized and matches very closely with make sure our union, it matches our union contract also. So
It's going to be great.
You have Munis, then ExecuTime, and then on top of ExecuTime, then you have this additional scheduler. So the scheduler for fire and police would flow into ExecuTime, ExecuTime data then flows into this. And then we pay.
The scheduler is part of Munis software?
It's part, yeah, it's under the whole pack.
Okay.
Technically, they purchased this package and then
As an add-on.
as an add-on. The good news from what I understood, they kept all the staff in that
In that company.
and that's why they're so good. So we're excited about the scheduler. Well,
leery about the time.
About the time.
Because literally almost everybody in the city is gonna have to change it, tweak a tiny thing.
But that scheduler is the one that we're still evaluating to make sure that that's the right solution for. That may not be.
Yeah.
We may come back and say, well, that's not gonna work for us, and so we would take that as credit. And then we would go out and try to find a different solution. Fits. So, that should-
No, that's it. No, that's good to know. That's really good to know. And it's gonna be, sounds like it's gonna be, make consistency important. And we've been doing that with some of the HR policies and some of the other employee-related policies across the board. So consolidating and making consistent timekeeping policies is, it's huge. It's great. And we'll have very accurate up to the minute reporting. Yeah, which is also useful for me. So, awesome, thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions for poor Mr. Luke? Okay, Ron, you're free to go. Congratulations. Enjoy your week.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, next up, I believe is Mr. Kidney. Are we right on that?
Yeah, what's the?
I gotta find it, sorry.
Monthly financial reports, May and June.
There you go.
So in the packet were the financial report for May and June. A couple comments. The reason May is in there because we didn't meet last month, so we wanted to make sure that those are on there. June numbers, the 15th of the month is our current deadline for monthly reports to be completed. I will say, however, you'll see the word preliminary on that June number year end, and it does take us time to get the everything put in and all the audit adjustments made. So what you're seeing right now is just the preliminary June. I wanted to get something out to you just to make sure you see a pretty much overview of how the city did. The June reports will change. We know they're going to change. They've changed already as we continue to update things. So if you also look on the packet, you'll see that we put together a summary, some highlighting some points. And so I'll just, if you want to share, I'll just go through.
Are we looking at May or June first, or what are you doing?
Well, I was going to just look at June.
Okay.
If you want to go back and look at May and then do June, then certainly do. Since I'm doing year-end data, I thought I would just go to June 30.
Okay.
So real estate property tax, of course, that's for the general fund, the health department, recreation, levy funds. We did.
What page? I'm sorry, Brian, but what page are you on?
So right now I'm just reading the memo.
Oh.
Basically.
The memo dated July 2021?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just highlighting those points. If you want me to refer you back to page numbers.
I'm just thinking for people listening online, they can follow it
Oh, sure,
easier if you mention what page you're on.
Okay, so I'm on the first page of the memo.
Okay.
I think that's PDF page 2. So our property tax, we did collect approximately 3% more in property tax than what we originally thought we were, and it had a lot to do with the increase in valuations that happened right at the even with the we had big rebates coming up. Between the two, we still ended up around 3% in budget, and you'll see those on the individual revenue sheet down. Sales taxes. You'll see the budget over actual shows that we were 10% higher than what was budgeted. But if we remember when it was originally budgeted, it was done in April and May of 2020. And so that was at the time that there was a lot of concern that we were going to get what was going to happen with sales tax. In actuality, instead of losing money, our sales tax went up 3%.
And this is not the use tax.
No, this is
Just
sales
sales tax.
Just
Okay.
sales tax. Our retail sales tax increased 3% from 20 to 21. Again, these are preliminary numbers.
I understand.
There's still some adjustments that may happen. But we had thought we were going to decrease between 5 and 6% when we originally set the budget. And so that's why, since we had a 3% increase over actuals and we thought we were going to drop 5 to 6%. That's why then you see the estimated 9% increase.
Why did you think we were going to drop 5%?
This was in March and April of 2020.
COVID, baby.
Set up.
Right, but we're gonna come out of that though.
We didn't know that then. And so if you remember, this was the budget year ago.
Right,
Um,
so we were just going really conservative.
yeah.
We were
It was a
scared.
very
Yeah,
competitive.
no,
We're gonna drop we're gonna drop 6%. And so, the good news is, so when we set the 2022 budget just recently, we had estimated what we believed the ending sales rate was, and we were right on track. So our estimates in setting up our 2022 budget, were right in line with what we thought. And actually, most of these, revenues projections are right on. So that means that we feel comfortable with our 2022 budget based on these revenues.
And I'm looking at May. May really went up. So I would anticipate that your June numbers are correct. I mean, May went up a lot.
Yeah, we also, and so again, on the same page, we show that, we have that graph there.
Yep.
We wanted to show month over month, so you kind of see historically 3 years ago, 2 years ago, where it was. And so, we're anticipating and hoping that we see that kind of increase in the back.
Yeah.
Next page is the use tax. Now, Councilmember DeLucci had questions about what funds received use taxes this past year. So this is year to date. We collected $4.7 million in total use taxes. This sheet shows how those were allocated. First, $1.5 million were split between animal services and police use funds. And then police use fund collected everything up to then $3 million. And then that's when the waterfall started happening. That then was allocated back to the sales tax funds based on what the sales tax rate is. So you'll see general fund $433,000, and then Buster Street funds also received sales tax that quite honestly would not expect it in the this year.
And this waterfall, and I should know the answer, but I don't. The waterfall, for example, that's going to the police. Here you estimate 20,000 for June. Okay.
Yes.
Are the restrictions of using it only for the new hires still on that $20,000, or does that only apply to the first 3 million?
That only, according how we have interpreted the ballot language, that would only apply to that $3 million in the police use fund.
Okay, so the waterfall fund just goes into the general tax categories, stormwater or whatever.
Now,
To use as normal. Okay, as
and
normal.
that police cells that you see there, that's equipment. That's not for personnel. The place you would see police being used or paid for would be out of that general portion. That's 433. So when you say
Right,
police,
right.
it would only be out of the general fund that we have the authority to
Okay.
pay for police. It's out of the
So
general.
the police fund, that $20,813, that can only be used for like cars and
I believe that's
radios and stuff? Okay, okay,
And
Good
most
to know.
retail.
thank you.
So is there any other questions about the? Again, these projections came in right at what we were thinking they were going to be. We didn't think they were going to be that back in March of 2020, March of 2021 this year, we estimated. And so these kind of projections are then.
And use tax is synonymous with Prop P.
Yeah.
Right?
Prop P established use tax.
Right.
When we say Prop P, it's
Well, it's just on your June 2021 memo, you call it Prop P, and here we are in July and you call it use tax.
sorry.
Pick a name and stick with it, will you?
That's
Please, please.
that's very specifically my fault. And I know Cindy's on the call. She originally had it as Prop P. I'm like, well, it's just not.
The thing is, in 10 years, we're all gonna be dead or gone. And somebody else is gonna be looking at these records, and I want them to be no confusion on what they're looking at.
There are people in here that are like 20 or 30.
I'm not.
We're
We're not all going.
Okay.
I only wanted to live to
Yeah.
40.
Guess it's time to go. Next page is transit guest tax. Again, and I really appreciate Cindy putting these reports together like this that shows kind of month over month to kind of give us an idea. You can see, you can see the impact very specifically of COVID over the last 2 years. And so, and then we have the total annual receipts. We're at $1.3 million at the end of 2020.
And that's down from 1.5.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, and in good times, they were at 1.9.
yeah,
So it's a good $600,000 or 31% down.
from a good time.
From the good.
Take good times.
Well, they were.
We're
We'll get there. We'll go back. We'll get there.
not dead.
If we're not dead. That's right.
So the next couple pages, there were some questions leading up to this meeting about fund balances, and so we did put some information in here about the fund balance. And so first thing I went ahead and put in what the policy says right now. So general fund is 16% of operating revenues. Special revenue funds that are designated for capital purposes are 5%. And special revenue funds that support personnel and ongoing operations are at 16%. And then, I don't say it here, but the utility funds then have a risk-based analysis that was done. Those three funds are done separately. The following page then shows those three different policies based on the type of fund, just to kind of show where we are over or under. And the policy does say if we're showing under, then we're required to develop a 5-year plan to bring those fund balances back up to where it should be.
And whose responsibility is that? Is that our responsibility or is it within each department?
Oh, no, it would be, it's a council decision setting the annual budget. So
the plan to get up to our target. Within 5 years, what's the plan to get up to the target? Whose responsibility is it to come up with the plan?
we obviously would develop the plan and then we present it each year to add.
We, the department, or we finance? Who's we?
We, the city management, as part of the
Okay.
budget process. So for instance, this last year, fund balance in the general fund was under. So you started seeing these 5-year forecasts that we put together. So that's part of this process. If you have a 5-year forecast. 5-year forecast, unfortunately, still does not show that we'll be up at what our policy is.
And I guess that's my question. Are we going to have a policy for each fund that's under where it should be?
Well, the policy is already there. What policy says that we give you a 5-year plan.
Okay,
Or we put together a 5-year plan to bring it back up at budget time. So by this time next April or May, you as the council want to be looking at, you want to see our 5-year plans to bring those fund balances back up to policy level, or change the policy.
Let me ask you, is that something that you already did calculations on? Or is that something that will be a part of next year's budget?
We do a 5-year forecast. We keep and maintain a 5-year forecast for the general fund. The separate departments, they also keep financial forecasts. We're hoping to bring them all in and be able to show them all at the same time.
I think it would be, I would probably want to see for the utilities, what the 5-year outlook looks like and what the plan would be to bring it back up. I'd like to be able to take a look at it here and then also refer it to the PUAP so they can look at it.
before next year.
Yeah, before next year. I'm not saying you have to have it done tomorrow. I'm
Right.
not trying to give you assignments, but whenever we can, whenever it makes sense, whenever you guys are ready. I know that the projected budget, overall budget for the city has us in the red in just 2 years.
Right.
By 2020 in the general fund. So, if adjustments need to be made to the rates, to debt servicing, whatever it is that we can do that can help us with that. The city hasn't done a real good job of long-term planning always, so.
Yeah, and so, and when you say utilities on the financial forecast, many times that does include the rate study. So that would be a budget kind of thing that.
And I'm not making a formal request for a rate study right now. I'm just, if we need to do one, we need to do one, and you can tell us that once you look at the numbers. But I just don't know. It's our job to look at these things and make sure the fund balances are staying in the black and get up to their policy.
Well, I'm looking at May and it says the total non-restricted resources available in IPL are a negative $24,847,079. And that takes my breath away. And what I'd like to know, I don't want to wait a year to find out how are we going to get that number up.
Right.
How are we going to make that number less? I mean, and if you have to wait a year, we have to wait a year. But if we don't have to wait a year, if we can perhaps have this plan in place, Karen, this is what we're going to do. Mayor, this is what we're going to do. I'd like to hear about that before next May. That's all I'm saying.
So specifically for IPL, the priorities that you and the council also about included recommendation to get cost of service study for IPL. So that would be a very logical first step to that process. But Ryan's absolutely correct. For the general fund, we forecast revenues. The utilities, generally, when you're looking at a 5-year plan, that doesn't include rate study.
I mean, here's the key point of it all. Not only are we looking at just the state of things today, the fund balance today, in comparison to the reserve policy, but there are certain members of the council that want to build the biggest power plant possible. Some of us may fall in between and buy a little bit lesser. But no matter where we end up on these items, whether it's 20 million or 50 million or 400 million, we also, I mean, at some point that's going to have to be factored in as well. We have to stop this business where we just borrow more money or just issue more bonds and just spend money, you know. So that, to me, that's a crucial part of this. Not only the cost of service for the current state of the budget, but as we get further in that, we'll have the RFP out or back by the end of the year.
To me, that's a separate issue though. I mean, I
yes
agree.
And no.
I agree.
Because that's going to
know.
manifestly affect a 5-year outcome.
But if we're charging staff with coming up with, in the next 5 years, how are you gonna dig out of a negative $24 million hole? I think that's one issue. And
it is, but if there's a $250 million issue.
Well, that will affect how we're gonna pull it out of the hole.
Correct.
But I think we first have to have a plan, is what I'm saying. And maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I'm way overstepping my bounds.
We can certainly give you a plan of the plan about the plan.
I appreciate it.
And we could go.
Do you understand where we're getting at? We need to know how much the rate increase is going to be and when, and for how much.
I think we were just kind of cost of service study, especially for that. We can use that and then look at under current rates, you know, forecast the financial position.
Perfect, yes.
Of the utility. We could start with that one.
Right.
Because that's probably the most immediate.
It is.
Concern, and then we can maybe use that and replicate.
Use that as a baseline so that when this other potentially gigantic expense comes up, that you know how that fits into that plan as well.
So our first step will be doing.
Chairwoman, if I may.
Yes,
I
sir.
may add to the discussion. So
Absolutely.
we're right on target with what we're looking at the books and diving deeper into that, so we can come up with policies and planning. How we soften those financial impacts is by increasing dollar amounts in your economic development for IPL, for usage. general fund money, that's got to be attached to it in here for tourism and all that. So even though we're looking strategically with the numbers that we have here, when we look into the future to help soften those numbers in that negative below, we've got to get our city economically positioned to develop. That will help soften. It's a two-pronged thing.
Oh, yeah.
Here, so as we move in other committees and other directions to soften these numbers, economic development's had to do it.
I just want to know what's the plan, and if the plan is we're gonna increase rates, then we're gonna increase rates, or if the plan is we're gonna, do a concerted effort to get more industry of this type within the city, and this is how we're gonna do it, and that way we're gonna increase the IPL revenue, that's fine too. I just wanna have some idea of a plan as opposed to the sky is falling a negative 24 million.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone here agrees on that. In addition, the question is also about those budgeted surpluses and what the use of those surpluses would be. And so that next page, then I show what the next 6-year capital improvement program is for those funds. With the idea that there's several funds that do have a surplus. However, when you look at stormwater, water, and water pollution control, they are making some pretty significant capital improvement investments, and these are all going to be cash funded instead of debt funded.
Can you just talk about one specifically so that I
Sure. So let's,
track with you?
if you'd like, stormwater, you can see stormwater currently has a $9 million fund balance. It's a pretty small fund balance, requirement of 200,000. So that then shows that there's $8 million, or almost $9 million in excess funds in stormwater. Then you go to the second page and you can see stormwater over the next 6 years has $12.7 million in capital expenditures and all cash. So you'll see the fund balance being depleted over the next 6 years. Because those will be pay-as-you-go type projects.
And not to make your life more miserable, but I was curious on, could we have some kind of breakdown on what are these projects?
Absolutely. We have those on the website.
Okay.
We have the full capital improvement program.
Well, I mean specifically, like, what is going to be this money that's being spent this year?
Yes, we have that.
Okay, great.
Broken down. Eric, could you remind me? So we'll send a link back out that goes specifically to that site. It's on the community development's front web page for capital improvement program.
Okay.
Explains a little bit about it, and then there's reports in there that summarizes it, and then it'll have a project sheet showing every single project and the detail behind that project that makes up this number.
And tell me this, Brian, is this new to our report? This
was a standalone sheet that I
Right.
used to provide,
right,
and we just added it to the memo since it was a separate action
right.
every month, so we decided, well, let's just go ahead and add it in.
And to me, it's more user-friendly within this document. So now I'm gonna ask you, can you put those pages from community development right after this within the document so that it's all in one?
That's a 180-page report.
Okay, I don't want to know what all the projects are. I just want to know, for example, in 2022, what are we spending 1.772.500 on stormwater? I don't care about 2023, 2024. I just want to know 2022. That's all I want to know.
We could, we have that in the budget document, and we could recreate that also.
The budget document is so big for me.
And
I'm just trying to make it easier.
yeah, we'll put, so just a list of what the project name is.
That's it.
Yeah, that's no problem.
That's it. And then if I have further questions about that project, I can go to your bigger budget book.
Yep.
Okay.
That shouldn't be a problem. Now, I
Thank
will
you.
say, it's a lot. Because
Well, it's a lot of money, yeah.
it's $138 million in the project, so it's gonna be several.
Okay, I don't want all the projects. I just want the projects for
It'll
this
be the
year.
$27 million.
Yes.
Very sorry.
Okay.
I'm with you. Sorry about that. Paul, do you still want the link then to that actual one report?
Yeah, please.
Okay. The next page, we just did some items of note, just because our larger operation plan, we just wanted to talk through a little bit. Definitely just wanted to point out, that COVID did have an impact, franchise fee. Also, but we had an impact on franchise fees, when again, going back to the budget. Originally, when we did the franchise fee budget, it was much more optimistic than it should. It was almost a little backwards. So when we set the budget for 2021, we decreased the sales tax budget quite a bit, but then at the same time increased the franchise fee budget. And the franchise fee would be for telephone, cable, gas services, or third-party utilities. That did not. We had it. The actual franchise fees came in $1.4 less than what was anticipated. However, when you look at actual 2020 versus 2021, the actual decrease was only 100 something. So you can see we really ramped up. And I can't really answer exactly why the franchise was budgeted so high, but that's what happened. I think there was a little bit shock of the sales tax is going to be so low, we have to.
Yeah.
So maybe a lot of wishful thinking in there. Bottom line is the sales tax is much better than what we anticipated, and offset this franchise fee estimate. There's a couple other departments that were over budget. Oh wait, I also want to mention fines and forfeitures and charges for services. You'll see on the reports we're down considerably for budget. That's records that result of several departments were over, mainly because of benefits over time. Public safety doesn't see that. I didn't say it, but it did another COVID impact this last year. Municipal services, again, these are preliminary numbers. There's still some adjustments that are taking place, specifically for capital projects. So employees in municipal services work on capital projects, and then at the end of the year, capitalize that cost and charge it back to those capital assets and lower the actual operating cost. So we'll see municipal services costs go down on the final report. I'm not sure if there's any other specifics you'd be interested in. There's some detail here about the utilities. But then it gets into the actual financial. And I'll just say at the end of the year for general fund, there's a surplus of 131,000 preliminary numbers. Our estimate was going to be $600,000 surplus. We're hoping as we make these year-end adjustments, we're going to get closer to 100,000 surplus right now.
End of fiscal year.
End of fiscal year. That's financial report. Unless again, got any detail?
I don't have any questions.
No.
I appreciate the questions you answered. Thank you. John, do you have anything?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Brian. Okay. Next up. Monthly city investment portfolio. Again, I think we're in the picture.
Those are in there. Both May and June are in there. And June was at 481,000 earnings. The cumulative earnings then were just shy of $1 million and 990,000. Still feeling fairly good about that. The yield at the end of the year was after fees 1.28%. We're still not seeing interest rates increasing over time. We're putting investments still short term at this point until we see any kind of movement market 3 years out. But right now we're short invested. Don't anticipate that this rate is going to be better. I'll see it in the future.
Any questions, John?
I will ask, since I've never seen this. We used a company called PFM Asset Management as our investment advisor, investment brokers, if you will. Just investment advisor. They had just been sold to another U.S. bank holdings. So there's been a transition in fortunate enough to be available to be this U.S. bank holder asset management. It did get staff thinking about the fees that we do pay them. We pay about $140,000 a year for this service for the investments. We are going to take a look at doing some analysis whether bought someone in house less than $140,000, whether or not we'll still be able to pay for that person. That might be something that you might see in that coming budget.
That person would manage our portfolio.
Yeah, they would be. They'd be helpful.
We used to self-manage a couple of years ago, and we were not getting a return on our investment at all. And that's when we went to an outside service, and they became, you know, within the confines of the law, they were simply more aggressive.
Sure.
But it's cost me $140,000, I guess.
They worked it. So
I don't know what
I wouldn't say aggressive because their aggressiveness is limited by what the statutes are.
Right.
So if we have someone who's really well trained in investments and statutes, we don't think that they. I mean, it's just be the same level of pressure that we're seeing now. So
you're saying it's cheaper to do it in-house, but then
we're gonna
all of that.
we're gonna look at that analysis. I just thought I'd share that data. We're gonna continue to look at that analysis. If it makes sense, then $140,000 a year, maybe we can hire someone for 90 to 100,000.
Right. And I know just from being here a couple of years that we have made money with this outside investment firm, even though it costs us $140,000.
Oh yeah,
We've made.
absolutely, absolutely. And I've used this firm in other locations.
Yeah.
I've had full in-house and then also kind of a hybrid model, which is something we might work on, is to have someone who's responsible for it, but still has out. Not what we do here, we literally, that money is actually sitting in there. Yeah, we turn all of them.
Okay.
The industry's changing a little bit with these mergers and stuff. We just thought I'd share with you. Awesome, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Moving right along. Budget line item detail report.
I'll go ahead and handle that. That's in your report. I'm happy to say this last month, this report. This, if you remember, tracked very specifically line items that were requested for us to track after the passage of last year's budget. And it just compares what the original budget was and what the actual is. Flipping through that, you would be able to see that definitely travel and training education is really where you see a lot of expenditures, much less than what the budget. I think the total report is around, originally out of this line item, $989,000.
$600,000 we saved.
$382,000.
$600,000. That's a lot of money. That's awesome.
We do not have a report for next year.
I understand. And I do appreciate you keeping track of them.
Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
Jessica.
Anybody have any questions about the line item? No? Okay. New business. Well, I guess I should announce to the citizens that the management analyst, Mark Perry, has retired. I hope that we're looking for another management analyst. And I met with Mark and he is finishing up the last report and I hope to have something for next meeting. But that's about that. I can't hear you, I'm sorry, what?
Would you be able, if you're actually meeting with them, would you?
Yeah, but he needs it to finish the.
On your final meeting?
Yeah, but he needs it to finish the report. But I said, please finish the report. And he said, okay, Karen, I will. And I said, thank you so much, Mark. Any other new business? Nope.
Nope.
Okay. I had some questions for Mr. Nail. Sarah, did you have a chance to ask Mr. Nail some of these questions?
He was on that email, so I personally did not.
Okay, then I will simply ask him later.
Think.
Yeah, we're prepared to answer.
Oh,
questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he,
if you could, that'd be great.
Yeah, because I believe most of those questions were referred to the staff.
Thank you. One of the questions was, did the staff meet at the end of June to determine the quote, best place for FERC accounting? I didn't know if that was within IPL or within finance.
So right now, the structure of finance and accounting includes finance and accounting staff embedded in this department, in electric, water. So we have a utility CFO and an accountant.
Do you have anybody trained in FERC accounting in the finance department?
They have gone training, sure. And
FERC training, okay.
And we are doing, we have a contract finishing up an analysis of kind of a gap analysis of our presence, of our accounting and our reporting. So that is supposed to be done in the third policy.
I just want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do for the FERC
And that's,
principles. That's all.
yeah, and that's that gap assessment we're doing right now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we'll have a report. And after you bring that to us, you'll take it to the PAB. That probably will.
Take it to PUAB first. I don't care.
Okay, whichever.
I don't care.
Trying to get the habit here.
We're getting there. How is IPL coming on recovering data from the cyber attack?
So, they're looking at I'll read this. The IPL system program supervisor reports that IPL has fully recovered from the cyber incident. We continue to look at any adjustments or program updates for best practices in data management, but the actual data restorations. So,
How is IPL, per IPL, I feel like I'm picking on IPL, but how is IPL coming on implementing GPS on the IPL vehicles?
and again, this is responsible. Mr. Now, IPL has been pursuing a solution to integrate GPS technology with notebooks, toughbook devices to provide the crews and a live data connection in the field. There's some incompatibility issues between the current devices and Windows 10. IPL has joined discussions with the other departments on what the best fit common solution would be for all the fleet vehicles. So they are meeting and discussing this issue citywide. I also know my staff, the GPS staff, is involved helping establish those minimum standards also.
Everything that can be the same citywide would be awesome. You know that. I mean, you want that too.
I believe that's why they brought it in.
And that's the goal with this, is that, we were kind of running. Let's come on. And, figure out a city.
That'd be great. That'd really be great.
That's why the excerpt is happening. So, we're gonna start with.
Good, very good.
Any other new business? What are we gonna talk about next time, guys? I'd like your suggestions, maybe within 2 weeks,
We'll talk about the gap analysis on the FERC accounting.
and I hope you have something from Mr. Tillman Perry.
Hopefully by then we should have a auditor.
Can you tell me, Mr. Norris, are we advertising for a management analyst?
I think we finalized the job description this week.
Okay.
So that we, posted.
Is there anything else that I've missed, or?
I
Then
don't think so.
I'm gonna call this meeting closed. Can I do that, or do I have to wait for somebody to make a motion?
Motion.
At 3:29, closed.
I told you to do it now.
59 minutes.
I'm glad, because I gotta go so close.